ਮਾਨ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਖੇਤਰ 'ਚ 5 ਵੱਡੇ ਕਦਮ। ਆਮ ਆਦਮੀ ਕਲੀਨਿਕ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਘਰ ਬੈਠੇ WhatsApp ਤੇ ਮਿਲਣਗੀਆਂ। ਆਮ ਆਦਮੀ ਕਲੀਨਿਕਾਂ 'ਚ 107 ਕਿਸਮਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਮੁਫਤ ਦਵਾਈਆਂ। ਆਮ ਆਦਮੀ ਕਲੀਨਿਕਾਂ 'ਚ 47 ਕਿਸਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੁਫਤ ਟੈਸਟ। ਆਮ ਆਦਮੀ ਕਲੀਨਿਕਾਂ 'ਚ ਐਂਟੀ ਰੈਬਿਸ ਦਾ ਮੁਫਤ ਟੀਕਾ। ਆਮ ਆਦਮੀ ਕਲੀਨਿਕਾਂ 'ਚ ਗਰਭਵਤੀ ਔਰਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੁਫਤ ਇਲਾਜ। ਇਹ ਹੈ ਨਵਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇਲਾਜ ਵੀ ਮੁਫਤ ਤੇ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਵੀ ਪੂਰੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਹੈ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ।
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching the Savera and I'm Shefali. In a landmark ruling with significant international trade implications, a federal appeal court has struck down US President Donald Trump's controversial reciprocal tariffs, offering a potential reprieve for India and several other countries that have been hit hard by the measures. The Federal Circuit Court of Appeals in Washington, in a 7-4 majority decision, ruled on Friday that Trump exceeded his presidential powers by unilaterally imposing the tariffs under the International Economic Emergency Powers Act. The court emphasized that the authority to levy tariff resides squarely with Congress unless explicitly delegated, making Trump's action unconstitutional. Despite the ruling, the court allowed the tariffs to remain in place until October 14, giving the Trump administration time to file an appeal before the US Supreme Court. This means the relief for countries like India, which has been directly affected by a 25% reciprocal tariff, would only materialize if the ruling survives the upcoming legal battles. Soon after the ruling, Trump denounced the Haley decision as highly partisan and warned of catastrophic consequences if it were upheld. He said if allowed to stand, this decision would literally destroy the United States of America. This is what Trump wrote on a social media platform, vowing to seek help from the Supreme Court. White House Deputy Press Secretary Kush Desai attempted to downplay the impact of the decision, stressing that the tariffs remain in effect during the stay and expressing confidence that the administration would ultimately prevail. What the ruling covers and what it does. So, the appeal court's decision significantly targets tariff imposed under the IEEPA, the legal tool Trump had relied on to justify his sweeping tariff actions. Trump argued that large US trade deficits mounted to a national economic emergency, thus empowering him to impose tariff without congressional approval. The court, however, rejected his rationale. Its majority opinion, the judge wrote, "Tariffs are a core congressional power. The Constitution vests the authority to impose taxes such as tariff exclusively in the legislative branch. The IEEPA does not amplify grant the president the power to impose tariff duties or taxes. As a result, the 25% reciprocal tariff on India export is said to be scrapped if the Supreme Court does not overturn the decision. The ruling does not affect tariff imposed under national security provision, such as duties on steel, aluminium and copper. The 25% tariff on countries buying Russian oil, which was indirectly affects India, remains in a grey area. Homeland Security Kristi Noem defended it as a measure addressing threats to the United States posed by Russia, which falls under national security rather than IEEPA. The case has been closely watched not only by foreign governments but also by small US business and several Democratic-led states, which argue that Trump's unilateral actions hurt domestic industries and consumers by targeting retaliatory tariffs from trade partners. Prominent constitutional lawyer Neil Katyal, a former acting Solicitor General, led the legal challenge. He argued that the IEEPA was never intended as a blanket authorization for the president to set trade policy and that Trump had used it as a pretext to bypass Congress. The court's ruling built on a May decision by the Court of International Trade, which has also found Trump's action unconstitutional but stayed enforcement to allow for an appeal. For India, the ruling could be a significant relief. The reciprocal tariff had hit Indian exports, straining bilateral trade relations at a time when the country was seeking greater market access in the US. If the ruling is upheld, the 25% tariff burden on India goods will be lifted, potentially boosting exports and easing tensions between New Delhi and Washington. Globally, the decision raises questions about the future of presidential authority in trade matters. Trump, during his presidency, has aggressively expanded executive power over trade. framing it as a material of national security and economic survival. The appeals court have now drawn a sharp line, reaffirming the trade wars cannot be waged without Congress' explicit sanction. The Trump administration is expected to file an expected appeal to the Supreme Court, where the ideological composition of the bench could play a decisive role. Now, if the High Court takes up the case, the ruling will not only determine the future of the reciprocal tariff, but also set a precedent for how far any US president can go in wielding emergency powers over trade. For now, countries like India remain cautiously optimistic, watching closely to see if the legal relief granted by the appeal courts will translate into tangible economic gains. That's all for now in this update. Stay tuned to the Savera, download the app and follow us on various social media platforms.